Last Epoch's full release took place this week, to an unfortunately mixed reception due to, of course, massive server issues and a general inability to manage this. It's with some disappointment I say this, as this script initially had a very positive intro, as I expected an awesome launch. It's been somewhat disappointing to see the company brag about selling 1 million copies, to then find themselves with such limited capacity that I was stuck in queues for close to an hour, before I found a cheesy workaround letting me skip a good 400 places in queue. So if from here on this script seems a little too positive, you know why. I wrote it before the launch. I still believe in this developer and in this game, and I hope this poor launch has been a result of inexperience rather than laziness, or a desire to maintain profit margins while waiting on the player base to thin out to levels they costed to. Ultimately, the game and its features still stand, but you can't win back a first impression, and this has soured the experience for many. Now, back to our scheduled program. But remember, this comes with a caveat that I'm expecting them to turn it around. If they don't, this video is going to age as poorly as their launch. As a lover of the games industry in recent years, I've been falling into significant disdain for the larger devs. They're focusing on monetization over player experience, so it's refreshing to see an indie studio doing the opposite, and engaging their community to develop player-focused quality of life improvements and features. In this video, we're going to explore how an indie studio releases such a feature-rich game. Does it stand a chance when Path of Exile 2 releases? And will Last Epoch survive between these two giants in the long term? This is focused on the development success of Last Epoch, how it ties into the larger industry, and like my previous videos in Larian Games, the developer of Baldur's Gate 3, I will also be contrasting this against the current giants in the genre, Diablo 4 and Path of Exile. I can hear those Diablo 4 fanboys now, giddy with excitement about how much better their game and developers are. Hang in there, boys. That's definitely where I'm going to go with this. For those who have never heard of 11th Hour Games, they're a small indie studio, and Last Epoch is both their newest and only released title. That's right, they came out swinging with an ARPG into an industry with D4 and PoE on the cards. Although you can't blame them for the timing. They did begin development way back in the late 2010s. The story begins with one man, Judd Cobler, also known by his Reddit handle MoxJet200. And if you think that's an odd statement, it is. But Judd actually started development of Last Epoch through hiring like-minded, talented people on Reddit. I'm not kidding. In prior interviews and their recent 1.0 trailer, Judd mentions this himself. In an interview with Zizaran, Judd discussed that he was obsessed with ARPGs. He talks about being inspired by Diablo 2, Path of Exile, Grim Dawn, even Marvel Heroes, and that he put in tens of thousands of hours into these games. This interest extended purely past playing these games, as Judd decided to begin his studio, 11th Hour Games, of which he remains CEO, and began work on his passion project, an ARPG that would include all of his learnings from his endless gaming. But he understood he needed help. Judd at the time ran a web agency in Texas, which gave him a good foundation for understanding how to work as a team, manage people, build user interfaces, and engage a customer base. What Judd didn't have were the development, art, sound, and various other skills that go into the development of a full game release, let alone the significant time investment. So like any normal person, he turned to the completely sane and reasonable people of Reddit, where he posted seeking the support of others in the creation of what would become Last Epoch. So Judd began speaking with like-minded people, and his surprise was gaining traction and interest from others keen on seeing his and their dreams come to life. Fast forwarding briefly brings us up to where the ball really got rolling. After paying initially for some off-the-shelf assets and models, and putting them together with a rough demo, and I mean rough, they began a Kickstarter in April of 2018, using this demo as a way to show off their vision. If you squint just enough, maybe you'll see it too. And enough people did, leading them to securing around $250,000 US in crowdfunding to begin creating their game. And that they did. The team got hard at work building what the community believed in and had supported through their grassroots startup. This is an insane and massive undertaking, and it really is a bit of an underdog story of a small team coming together to build their dream. Jury's still out on whether that's going to be a success. This injection of funding was enough to get them going, but wouldn't see them to the finish line. I'm jumping forward here, but in March of 2022 came the news that 11th Hour Games had partnered with Tencent. Tencent are a large Chinese multinational company and one of the largest multimedia investors in the games industry. Interestingly, Tencent also hold equity in PoE, but they have a reputation for some of their games being very microtransaction heavy. This was met with some, I'll say, disappointment in the community. Tencent's reputation was looked at by some as a mark against the game, but in their community post, MoxJet200, Judd assures fans that Tencent was chosen from many options and is an investor that would continue to allow them to design, create, and operate without strings attached. Although it wasn't announced how much equity the company were given, which was a concern that I would say probably didn't pan out, as we're hitting full release and we're not seeing any recognizable problems associated with that partnership. So now we know how they were funded. Let's look at their development of Last Epoch. EHG's approach to development, much like their inception, involved community engagement, feedback and improvement on repeat, with their working goals and a full release being the light at the end of the tunnel. I do love this type of development. The community always knows what's happening, what might be setting the studio back. It allows the community input at crucial opportunities to better the overall product, and gives the devs a sounding board for ideas. What's beautiful about this is you can go right now to their forums or to their YouTube channel and see this development in action. The clips you're watching now largely come from their YouTube channel and document all of the steps they'd taken. Their regular development streams, which engaged and captivated the community, and their regular snippets of testing and work being done on the game. We've all been there, right? You're waiting on a massive release, you see sculpted sections of the product, but you never see anything real. And then you see gameplay or jump in yourself, and it's not exactly what you expected because someone with an interest in PR led the pre-release information campaign and wanted it to look cinematic, almost perfect. They would never show you this. But it's this that brings us to where we are today. I believe it's fine to show this in good faith to your player base by saying, hey, this is rough as guts, but it's a foundation is coming together, and believing they will support and provide valuable feedback to you. EHG as a studio is quite modern in its operation, both out of necessity, but also out of interest in developing the best product. When Judd began to bring people together over Reddit, he didn't pick and choose who lived in Texas near him. He has brought over Australians, South Americans, Europeans, people who have the same passion as him. On their website now, you can see where the staff are broadly located and what they provide to the team. This is shit only a small studio can do, and it works so well. As a result of their hiring, EHG is a completely remote studio. They don't have a physical location. If you want to hear Judd talk more about this, I'll again shout out Zizaran's video on the topic, as he goes into more detail there. And it's here I want to highlight what really stuck with me from this. Something that really sells me on Judd's attitude to designing the game. Zizaran asked the question about how they decide what to copy from preceding games in the genre, and uses the example of every game having Fireball. Now the easy answer would be he needed skills, or he needed loot to show the flashy aspects of the game, the PR answer. Instead, Judd goes straight to the heart. He details the feeling of an ARPG, that the formula is great, and that you need to capture that feeling, and what he's referring to here is the gameplay loop, synonymous with ARPGs of killing, looting, powering up, and killing to get more loot, and repeating this over and over. He goes on to talk about some technical aspects of authorization done by the server versus by the client, and gives the example of grinding for a top tier piece of loot in a client authoritative setup. Client authorization can result in the ability to easily hack into files and create this loot piece without the grind, which impacts on the gameplay loop for players. It destroys that feeling of playing an ARPG, not just for the cheater, but for the average player too, because grinding for hundreds of hours for that pinnacle loot, when someone can spend 5 minutes creating it, defeats any sense of progression and eliminates the possibility of fair leaderboards, races, and trading. He discusses this as their reasoning for maintaining server authorization, which means that the server will cross-check inputs and not allow anything untoward. I highlight this because it shows Judd's design focus, the design philosophy he brings to the company's CEO and game director. Their entire focus was on preserving and improving the feel for the individual gamer, preserving the classic ARPG feeling we chase. They didn't focus on the bottom line. What's cheaper? He didn't talk about making sacrifices of X to meet Y. They wanted the game to feel and to remain pure, and for players to be able to chase their endgame and feel value in this. So when asked, what do you want to take from other games? His answer was a strong directive that this game will feel good to play. That is their focus. And you see this throughout their entire design. Their forum posts, their YouTube updates and trailers. Each step has been a progression towards their final product, and in each step they talk about what's successful in their eyes and seek input from others. For their quality testers, EHG brought on many of their devoted Kickstarter adopters who were already giving feedback while playing the early build, legitimizing their input into careers because EHD so deeply valued this feedback. let's bring us to where we are today. Judd learnt from his own time playing ARPGs what worked and what didn't, and brought that experience as the game director to his now 75 plus staff. He identified what felt good for him as a player, and engaged his team as well as the community in discussing these ideas. So what are EHD doing with Last Epoch that hasn't been done before? Now we have some concepts like leveling, which in Last Epoch is tied to your used skills, giving each its own unique skill tree and a strong sense of depth. Last Epoch has 120 plus skills at launch, with a wide variety of replayability around their varying build paths, giving each its own tree. For context, Diablo 4 has around the same number of skills, not included passives, which Last Epoch have also in another set of skill trees, but D4 skills don't have their own trees, which varies builds. They have 2 extra options to very slightly vary how they work. Now I'm no expert. I struggle to make heads or tails of the absolutely intense build-defining capabilities of these D4 skills. I mean, how is one supposed to decide between these 2 options? It's an insurmountable task. Let me go play some PoE instead. Last Epoch landed on an awesome and unique skill setup that rewards players' experimentation and doesn't lock you in. You can respec these anytime, with your only penalty being that you will lose XP within these skill trees and need to re-level them. But it's a system that rewards experimentation, which is a hard line to walk. One side being too simple, boring even, and giving players no reason to begin a new character when you can swap on the fly, to a system that locks you in very early and punishes experimentation without large time sink. Now if you're an enjoyer of D4 or PoE, I'm with you. I like PoE. D4 can go rot. I have nothing against more challenging systems, and I thoroughly enjoy Path of Exile, but it can be a ball ache. If you make a mistake early on and realize it 50 levels later, oof, you're in for a bad time. Last Epoch brings in a really good balance in this skilling, and with this they brought a number of quality of life fixtures to full release. This includes fully inbuilt trade functionality. Trading has been a staple for years, however in some recent releases a trade house is completely absent. While in others, it's a third-party process that takes you out of the game. This is something Judd specifically pointed out as an issue he wanted to avoid. Both trade and a full in-game wiki are available in Last Epoch, giving players all the information they need firsthand. Last Epoch's trade system looks like an awesome innovation in the genre, with built-in paths from the get-go for those interested in trading, as well as paths for those wanting to go the solo route that increases drops but removes the ability to trade for other items. I appreciate that they've catered for separate sections of the player base. They even thought through small details, like these resonance items which allow players going for the solo loot path to play with others of the same faction, and trade sparingly, but only if they play regularly with one another. It's the attention to detail here that's commendable. Many other large developers begin to trade in these quality of life improvements and additional features so that they can flesh out their cash shop, or their battle pass prior to release, putting in resources that will earn the company money and meet their bottom line, while EHD have focused on the player experience first. This is the sign of a passionate developer, someone who had a vision for their perfect game and strived to achieve this. Which begs the point, this may not be your perfect ARPG. Maybe you already have that in Path of Exile, or expect to have that in Path of Exile 2, and that's awesome. I love this, but Last Epoch can serve as a beautiful middle ground for those wanting an easier experience in Path of Exile, but want to have to use more than 2 brain cells to play it. And for someone like me, I'll play both. But that leaves the question, will Last Epoch thrive in this space? As much as I've ragged on D4 here, the corpse of the Diablo franchise being propped up to keep the people coming, it serves a purpose of an easy to jump into hack and slash and still attracts its following. Hell, I bought it and played it. PoE meets the needs of the hardcore market and have over a decade of experience in keeping their franchise alive and well. Can Last Epoch stand with these giants? Only time will tell, but my view is that Last Epoch will thrive in this market because it's made by people who love what they do and want to build the best product they can. I would say the same for Grinding Gear Games and Path of Exile, who similarly was started by people with a strong love for the genre who wanted to build their ideal game. Their success has come from decades of work on their game, from people who enjoy and love game development, and who are still putting the players first. Blizzard unfortunately lost that a long time ago, and have been coasting off their previously stellar reputation, sacrificing more and more of their reputation to cash in, until one day it is going to run out. But who knows, maybe Microsoft can trim the fat and bring them back to life. Last Epoch can succeed in this market by continuing to listen to their community, engaging them, and continuing to innovate and maintain a strong quality of life that their competitors are currently missing. I'll say it again, I love Path of Exile, but anyone who's played it more than a few hours know it's unfriendly to beginners. Hell, I have almost 1,000 hours in it, trivial to some, I know, and if you ask me how to craft, I'd have a stroke trying to put it into words. I said to my friends recently, what I'm most excited for in Last Epoch is knowing I'll be able to pick up the crafting system day one, and maybe not be a complete expert, but I'll know what I'm doing out of the gate, in a system that has depth, meaning, and is in a streamlined environment. Last Epoch is now in full release. They have a fully fleshed out and feature-rich endgame, a gorgeous campaign, trade system, and more, all starting from a simple Reddit post and a few dedicated individuals. I had planned to critique the monetization practices in this industry, but I'd just be bashing Blizzard even more. Last Epoch is half the price for an arguably better product. Again, assuming they get it working. And while it will have microtransactions, if they continue support of this game, I'm glad to have the option to continue my support in the future, and it doesn't come across as greedy to me. It's a fair price for a good product, assuming it works, and extra goodies if I want to throw them a bone. It's all cosmetic. Hell, they could have gone full price, a battle pass, a cash shop day one, but I mean, come on, who on earth would actually even try that? I believe this will be a success story in this industry, and I love to shed light on these wherever I can. A true passion project brought to life, and I hope Judd and his team are thrilled with their achievements, but I really hope they sort out these server issues. So, what do you think of Last Epoch? Were you able to jump in it for release, or have you run into a lot of problems like I have? I still have some hope, but we're gonna have to wait and see. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I appreciate all of your support. If you'd like to help me further, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the comments below. See you around.